If you thought the joy of the election was over, well, Albertans might be in for a treat. 3 by-elections will soon be taking place in Alberta, with the leader of the Alberta NDP, Naheed Nenshi, set to run in one of them. The leader of the Republican Party of Alberta, Cam Davies, will also be running. These 3 by-elections are set to occur while Alberta Premier Danielle Smith is running hot, with even the CBC showing that her government would cruise to an easy majority if another provincial election occurred. The Alberta Prosperity Project also officially filed its petition application to Elections Alberta while requesting that the office prioritize its question over potential counter-questions from other groups that might not warrant a citizen-initiated referendum. The province also cracked down on schools that refused to deal with the presence of explicit pornographic materials in K-12 school libraries. Also, the province has been cracking down on commercial truck driving schools for violating the Traffic Safety Act. All that and more on this week's Alberta Roundup. I'm your host, Isaac Lamoureux. Let's get into that first story now. 3 Alberta by-elections were recently called by Alberta Premier Danielle Smith across the province. The by-elections for Edmonton-Strathcona, Edmonton-Ellerslie, and Olds Didsbury Three Hills will occur on June 23rd. The seat in Edmonton-Strathcona became vacant when Rachel Notley resigned her seat last year. The seat has been held by the NDP since 1997. It has not been held by a Conservative since Julian Koziak, who held the seat between 1971 and 1986. Now, Alberta NDP leader Naheed Nenshi is set to run in the riding, which is of course the safest NDP seat in the province. Perhaps even more interestingly for some is the riding of Olds Didsbury Three Hills, where the leader of the Republican Party of Alberta, Cam Davies, will run in the by-election. This riding will be interesting to monitor as constitutional lawyer Keith Wilson has warned that the Republican Party of Alberta might split the vote on the right and grant the NDP power. Since 1997, the seat has been held by the Wild Rose and Conservative parties. It recently became vacant because Nathan Cooper resigned to become Alberta's representative in Washington, D.C. The Alberta NDP are running Bev Taves as their candidate in the riding. The 3 by-elections are taking place while provincially, the UCP would soar to another easy majority if a provincial election took place based on recent polling. And this is coming from polling from the CBC, so if they're saying that the Conservatives are way ahead, you know it must be pretty dominant. The CBC conducted a poll between May 7th and 21st, showing that over half of Albertans currently support the Alberta UCP. The poll showed that Smith's favorability rating was 4.5 out of 10 last year, which rose to 4.7 this year. Conversely, Nenshi received an average impression rating of 4.1. And speaking of polls, a recent Leger poll showed that support for separation in Alberta might be rising, with 41% of Albertan respondents saying they would vote to separate in a referendum, with only 44% saying they would vote no. The 3rd by-election is occurring in Edmonton-Ellerslie because the seat was vacated by Rod Loyola, who stepped down to run for Mark Carney's Liberal Party. Remember, Loyola joined the Liberals despite blasting the party for years. On March 25th, 2014, he said, quote, "You won't catch me working with the Liberal Party of Canada. They talk like NDPers, but they act like Conservatives." The Liberals subsequently axed the candidacy of Loyola after a video surfaced of him praising terrorist groups Hamas and Hezbollah. He then pledged to run against Edmonton Mayor Amarjeet Sohi as an independent candidate in Edmonton's southeast. Loyola and Sohi both lost to Conservative Jag Sharan Singh Mahal. Sohi returned to be Edmonton's mayor for now, but said he won't run again when his term concludes. For our next story, the Alberta Prosperity Project has officially filed its petition for a referendum on separation, but more accurately, the group filed a placeholder petition application. The CEO of Alberta Prosperity Project, Mitch Sylvester, filed the petition application last Friday. However, the group asked Elections Alberta to hold the application until Bill 54 is officially proclaimed. The bill, which lowers the referendum threshold from 600,000 to 177,000 signatures, received royal assent on May 15, 2025. The Alberta Prosperity Project's letter confirmed the group has received over 250,000 pledges as of May 21, 2025, which consists of Albertans pre-registering their intent to sign a petition. Remember, the Alberta Prosperity Project unveiled its official question at the start of May. The proposed referendum question is, Do you agree that the province of Alberta shall become a sovereign country and cease to be a province of Canada? But now, counter groups are trying to propose questions of their own. For example, the APP's letter addressed another petition application that was recently filed. The Alberta Prosperity Project's letter, written by constitutional lawyer and general counsel with the project, Jeffrey Rath, reads, quote, "We note that Mr. Thomas Lukashuk, on behalf of Forever Canada, has filed a publicly available petition with the following question. Do you agree that Alberta must remain in Canada and any form of separation be rejected?" Rath added, quote, "The question is not a proper referendum question to be used on a constitutional issue. Furthermore, to the extent that the question seeks nothing than to preserve the status quo, it is not a suitable question for determination through a citizens-initiated referendum." The letter continued, concluding, quote, "As such, we would request that you prioritize the approval of the question put forward by Mr. Sylvester ahead of any other applicants filing mischief applications seeking to interfere with the orderly collection of signatures in support of the referendum question put forward by Mr. Sylvester." Rath also outlined the remaining steps between the petition application and the official referendum vote. The next 4 steps are to wait. Wait for the amended legislation that lowers the legal referendum threshold from 600,000 to 177,000 to be proclaimed into law. Wait for Elections Alberta to approve the application. Wait for official instructions, and wait for official petition sheets. Alberta Premier Danielle Smith will also have to decide how to deliver the referendum. She previously pledged that the question on separation would be put to a vote in 2026 if enough signatures were collected. Rath cautioned Albertans, however, not to sign any petitions until Elections Alberta issues official sheets and canvassers receive proper training. He said, quote, "If anyone asks you to sign something before the APP launches the petition drive, they are tricking you." Take Back Alberta leader David Parker commented on the Alberta Prosperity Project moving forward in its process. Parker said, quote, "Alberta Prosperity Project has made the right move. Odds are it will take a month for Elections Alberta to approve the question. With NDP operatives already filing their own question, there is no choice but to press forward." For our next story, we'll discuss how the Alberta government is cracking down on school boards that allow pornographic materials to remain on K-12 library shelves. Education Minister Dimitrios Nicolaides announced a new public consultation to develop mandatory standards for library content, standards that will now be enforced province-wide. He said, quote, "It is extremely concerning to find out that books explicitly depicting sexual acts are available to students in some school libraries. We are going to do something about this serious issue." The province says books like Genderqueer, Flamer, and Fun Home, which include passages involving sexting, sexual violence, and profane pornographic content, have been discovered in libraries for children as young as kindergarten. The content of these books has sparked outrage among parents who claim schools are exposing children to pornography under the guise of diversity and inclusion. And to be honest, some of the quotes we covered in this article are so obscene that I'm not going to say them here. And remember, this is available for children. Previously, Alberta only offered voluntary guidelines, but with inconsistent vetting by school boards, the province says it's stepping in. The new rules will apply to public, Catholic, Francophone, charter, and independent schools, and school boards will be required to publish their policies for evaluating library materials. However, the new rules will not apply to public libraries, including the 55 municipal libraries housed inside school buildings. Albertans are being invited to weigh in through an online survey where they can share their views on what should be accessible in school libraries. The province says it will collect feedback and then issue a ministerial order ahead of the 2025-26 school year. That means explicit material will soon be on its way out, permanently. Nicolaides said, quote, "School libraries should be a place where kids can go to learn and explore without being exposed to sexually explicit material that is clearly inappropriate for their age." For our last story today, we'll discuss how Alberta is clamping down on truck driving schools that have been skirting the law. Following multiple investigations, Transportation Minister Devin Dreeshen told True North that several driving schools and instructors have had their licenses revoked and have been fined up to $10,000 for, quote, "serious violations of the Traffic Safety Act." Those violations include fake student records, cheating on road tests, and falsified assessments, all of which Dreeshen says put Albertans at risk. He said, quote, Any school or instructor that compromises public safety will face serious consequences. Our enforcement strategy is proactive, data-driven, and uncompromising when it comes to protecting Albertans. The minister said the province regularly inspects driver training schools, instructors, and examiners to ensure compliance with provincial traffic laws. Dreeshen pledged that the province would continue to take strong actions against bad actors in the commercial driving industry. The crackdown comes as the province rolls out its new Class 1 learning pathway, which replaces the MELT program and introduces tiered apprenticeship-style training for new drivers. The crackdown follows several recent incidents. In March, an Albertan-based semi-truck driver and their company were charged with 28 offenses after a load struck an overpass on Sherwood Park Freeway. The driver faced 13 tickets totaling around $25,000, and the company faced 9 tickets totaling around $13,000 for a cumulative $38,000. Last fall, another Albertan driver was fined after a modular home he was hauling slammed into a BC overpass, the 24th overpass strike of the year in BC, far surpassing the 17 recorded in all of 2023, and by year's end, BC recorded 29 overpass crashes involving commercial vehicles. That wraps up this week's show. My name's Isaac Lamoureux, your host of the Alberta Roundup. Have a great weekend. Thank you, and God bless.